It says you're recording.
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to August 3rd's Bhpac meeting. It's an exciting meeting. Every other year, we work to develop recommendations and offer feedback from community and people with lived experience as to recommendations to the federal block grant from SAMHSA regarding mental health, substance misuse, and recovery. So taking a look at the agenda today, if you guys don't have your agenda, put your hand up so that way Donda can see it and she can forward that over to you, and the minutes and all the other attachments we have today. So if you're missing some items, just put your hand up while I'm running through the agenda and we can zap that over to you. So thank you very much. On 9 o'clock, we're going to do a roll call and get everyone recorded into session. We've changed the agenda a little bit, so we have more time to focus on recommendations, discussion, and feedback as to what we're turning into the BHA and what the BHA has decided to bring back to us after they've reviewed the information that we sent up the food chain. So at 9:15, we're going to go ahead and do community announcements. We're going to find out what's going on in our prevention and intervention, treatment, and recovery community. So plan for that at 9:15. Then we're going to go ahead and go to a break. I probably will not be doing a 15-minute break today. I'll probably shorten that, folks. So go ahead and plan for a 10-minute break. I'd like to make sure that we have enough time for recommendations and feedback. So if there's any concerns with that, we can certainly keep 15 minutes, but I certainly want to allow enough time for a robust conversation with the recommendations. Then at 10:15 or 10:10, we'll come back and we'll discuss and collaborate with the BHA and the dialogue between lived experience recommendations, treatment recommendations, prevention recommendations, and how the BHA feels about those recommendations, and then we'll collaborate and make something great. At 11, that is the feedback discussion, and these two sections will be binding together, so it's one big fluid conversation. So from about 10:10 to 11 and 11:30, we're going to have a fluid conversation. My goal is to get us out early. And then if there's any legislative updates or any other information that the BHA has for us, at the end of our session, there will be announcements from our BHA colleagues. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and call for roll call.
All right, let's start with Marcella.
Buenos dias, I'm Marcella with IDEA. I've had a great summer. Thank you very much. We're extremely busy, busier than ever. And so really focused on that and moving to larger, bigger locations, which are massive, massive projects. Good to see you all again.
Thank you, Marcella. Margie.
Margie Grimsley with the Colorado Federation of Families for Children's Mental Health. And I just want to say that I'm having technical difficulties with other meetings. So if I fade in and out, I will just keep trying to make this work. I'm keeping my fingers crossed, but thank you.
Thank you, Margie. Dennis Streeter.
Hi, Dennis Streeter with our Community Broadcasting Network. I have lived experience as a primary caregiver for my wife with dementia, and also participant in the committees of membership and prevention.
Thank you, Dennis. Lloyd Moore.
There we are, unmute. My name's Lloyd Moore. I am a person in long-term recovery. I'm going to switch this up a little bit, dual diagnosis and a family member. I think from a membership standpoint, we're going to have to address that. I'm on the I'm your membership chair on the steering committee and the recovery committee. Thanks.
Thank you, Lloyd. Laura Dykes.
Morning, everybody. Laura Dacus. I am on the treatment committee. I am Behavioral Health Quality Assurance Director at Colorado Coalition for the Homeless. And I have a theory that climate change is actually affecting how we experience the passing of time. And that is why summer feels like it passed by in like 2 seconds this year.
I agree with that one. Megan Shelton.
Good morning. I am here. Good to see all of you today.
Thank you, Megan. Nat Brown.
Morning, Natalie Brown with Summit Stone Health Partners and Spirit Crossing Clubhouse. I am on the recovery committee and the membership committee. Nice to see you all.
Great to see you. Thank you, Natalie. Aaliyah.
Good morning, everybody. Aaliyah Andrews. I am the Recovery Services Manager and your Recovery TA for the BHA.
Thank you. Lorraine Gallery.
Okay, now can you hear me?
Yes.
I'm Lauren Gilroy coming to you from Frontier House in beautiful downtown Greeley. I'm with the Clubhouse Coalition. We just revamped, so our name is Rocky Mountain Clubhouse Coalition. We're thinking big, and I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Lorraine. Andrea Jones. Catch you off guard.
I know, right? I'm multitasking badly. No, I'm Andrea Jones. I'm the Deputy Policy Director over at Behavioral Health Administration. Good morning.
Good morning. James Gannett.
Morning, everybody. Good to be back. James Gannon, person in active and sustained recovery. Because of that, I'm the Director of Programs at Advocates for Recovery Colorado, and I sit on the Recovery Committee.
Thank you, James. Lori Banks.
Good morning. I am Lori Banks, and I am the Chief Administrative Officer at Aurora Mental Health and Recovery, and I'm on the Treatment Committee.
Thank you, Lori. Kristen Toombs.
Good morning, everybody. Kristen Toombs. I'm with the state of Colorado. I'm the director of the Office of Homeless Initiatives. That's within the Department of Local Affairs, Division of Housing. Glad to be here. And I will be on and off camera because you can tell I'm kind of moving around here this morning, but I'm very excited to be with you all.
Thank you, Kristen.
Thank you, Kristen.
Stephanie Johnson.
Good morning.
Good
I'm
morning.
Stephanie. I am with Well Power. I'm our Director of Community Relations and Public Policy.
Thank you, Stephanie. Annette Zacharias.
I'm Annette Zacharias up here in Larimer County, and I'm the Executive Director of Family Housing Network, a local shelter for homeless families.
Thank you, Annette. Bonnie Holiday.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Bonnie Holiday. I'm a program manager with the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment, and I'm part of the prevention committee, and I'm also your prevention technical assistance provider, connecting you to all resources prevention related.
Thank you, Bonnie. Shannon Miller.
Hi, Shannon Miller. I'm with Crossroads Turning Points. I work with recovery. Starting on a new project, working with all of our C-Corps Region 19 counties out southeast, and then I do employment as well. I'm a peer myself with familial substance use and mental health, and then myself with mental health. So, and I serve on the recovery committee.
Thank you, Shannon. Rachel Horde, are you ever just able to speak? There we go.
I am able to speak. Sorry, no video today. I'm not feeling well, but Rachel Horde, I'm from the Division of Vocational Rehab Supported Employment Program Manager, and I'm on the Recovery Committee.
Thank you, Rachel. Candace Ludwig.
Hello, I'm Candace Ludwig. I am a person with lived experience in active and sustained recovery, and I serve on the recovery committee.
Thank you, Candace. Christina Colm, is that right? With Cedar Springs? Christina, are you there? Okay, we'll go ahead and skip her. Elisa Baker.
Hi, I'm Alyssa Baker. I am a licensing and designation manager with the Behavioral Health Administration.
Thank you, Lisa. Let's go ahead and go with Frank Cornelius.
Hi, everybody. Frank Cornelia with CBHC. I'm a member of the public for this purpose here today, and a longtime member, past member of the council.
Thank you, Frank. Kimberly Goodrich.
Hi, this is Kim. I'm with Eagle Valley Behavioral Health, Vale Health up in the mountains. I am their program improvement director.
Thank you, Kimberly. And I did get a message from Christina that her mic is not working. So she is here with us. Let's go ahead and go with Ryan Templeton.
Good morning, Bhpac. Ryan Templeton. I'm the Policy and External Affairs Division Director with the Behavioral Health Administration.
And Mr. Dorsheimer.
Good morning, everybody. Bob Dorsheimer with Mile High Behavioral Healthcare. This is my 7th year and last year, and next month will be my last meeting, several of us. So we'll talk about that next month. And I can't agree more. I don't know where the summer went, and it has to be with all this rain and cold. But I just noticed my elementary school down the street was doing registration, and I'm like, I haven't even been to the pool yet. So I agree with you, Laura. And welcome, everyone. We've got a great group of people today. We're at 27, so it's going to be a robust meeting. So I appreciate you all for joining us today.
Thank you. And is there anybody I missed? Great. Back to you, Bob.
Thank you so much for roll call, and thank you again, everyone, for joining. So this is the exciting part that I love of the agenda. I think Colorado does such amazing things in prevention, intervention, treatment, and recovery. And we've come so far from 7 years ago to today, is just truly amazing, the progress, and certainly the creation of the BHA and how we're moving forward in a strong way for Colorado. So I'm going to go ahead and open it up now. This is a fluid part of our agenda where, it's open discussion, talk with one another. So what is going on in Colorado this month or next month? Anything you would like to share in the prevention intervention community throughout Colorado? What do you got?
This is Margie Grimsley, and my comments go back a month, and I don't know whether Bonnie Holiday, I was able to attend virtually the first day of the Risk and Protective Factor Conference, and I just learned so much from the presentations that I was able to listen into that one day. And I know there was so much more that went on in person. And I don't know whether, Bonnie, anything maybe you would want to share or highlight, and I'm putting you on the spot and I apologize, but I just thought there were some amazing things that I learned about that first day. And if there's ways that we can benefit or learn from some of that work that was presented.
I'm so glad you enjoyed the content on the first day. I was on the planning committee, and I think anyone who's done a hybrid conference, it's always a little bit daunting. And I think something else I'd like to share about the conference that we got in feedback is I think it was, in terms of youth engagement and youth-led material, it was probably one of the strongest youth-led conferences I've been to. And all of that was organic. I mean, we invited youth, but they really took the reins on that one, which was great. And in terms of what we could bring here, I'm definitely going to put my thinking cap on for that one. I think I need more coffee to for everything to fire up this morning. But one project that I did oversee this past year was the creation of an impaired driving prevention toolkit. There's an English version, a Spanish version. So I'm going to go ahead and post the link in the chat because we were able to finish that, and it's quite the project. And so I think that was presented on during the virtual day. And I'm also going to think about who else might be available to come in from the conference.
Yeah, I think it would be
What's the
great
name
to
of the
talk
conference?
more about adolescents as we talked about the adolescents this year, but maybe Margie, we can bring some of our friends from public health into BHA to talk about what protective factors are and what a protective factor conference does, so everyone has the same footing and understanding in this group, because it's a very exciting conference. So I think for a future agenda, you guys should definitely come back and present about how the youth led the conference and what it was about. That sounds fantastic.
Yeah, I agree. It's really important for us to build off that work that's being done. And I think that was one of our main focuses on our prevention committee, was really how do we learn what is happening and how do we benefit from it, so we're all kind of on the same page. Right now, I'm not even sure we're in the same book.
Well, I made a little mental note for everyone. The BHAC, which is the Lived Experience Advisory Task Force for the BHA, now has a subcommittee on adolescence. So this would be a perfect topic for us to start learning about what has taken place with protective factors in a youth-led conference. So thank you for bringing this up. And I'd like to remind everyone, we do have now our first subcommittee as BHAC, and that subcommittee is addressing adolescent behavioral health concerns. So anyone at any time is welcome to drop in and be a part of that. It's brand new. So I'm going to make a mental note about the protective factors prevention conference, and would love to hear more about that in the other commission as well. Is there anything else from the intervention and prevention community?
If I could jump in, kind of excited about a project that I'm just about to start with 5280 High School. For those who are aware of that, high school started in 2017 and is all the students are in recovery. And they've asked me to come in and teach a class on broadcast journalism and how to put together a documentary. So I'm going to be starting that in a couple of weeks, and it's going to run through December, where the students are going to produce, start to finish, a documentary on 5280 High School. And it's going to include a lot on peer-to-peer work, as well as what they're experiencing in recovery. So again, pretty excited about that. I'll put my website in the chat. If you want to go to the website, you can read up a little bit more on that in the announcements. Thanks.
That's great. I think I see a hand with Miss Antoinette.
Yeah, I was just going to share that up here in Larimer County, we are opening up our Longview campus. So our local community health center provider for mental health is going to be opening up an expanded services. Immediately, they're going to be having our acute care segment is going to be opening up, we hope, by December. So it's a huge expansion. We're hiring a lot right now up here, and we're running a homeless shelter. I'm very excited to have expanded services available.
Yeah, I've been following them, I think, on Instagram, watching that beautiful new behavioral health campus being built. It's absolutely gorgeous.
It is gorgeous. We just got to, I know that we talk a lot about, the staffing issues all across the country, and, we got to get some people in there to staff it so that we can then serve.
Well, I wish you all the best of luck in figuring out how to do that.
Gee, thanks.
We have gotten very creative now. I'll give everybody a tip on what I figured out is now working. So if you find a resume you like, bring them in for an interview. And if the interview goes well, hire them on the spot. That's what people are doing. They're not getting second or third interviews. And just remember, people are on their introductory period of time. So you can always say bye-bye if it doesn't work. But going through the interview process, if you get to a second interview and they actually show back up, you're lucky, because all of our second interviews, people ghost because they've already taken other jobs. So a few of the mental health centers and other of my colleagues have moved to hiring fairs on the spot. So that makes it move a lot faster and harder for some of us that are still doing it traditionally. So you can, maybe that'll work, help get that beautiful campus up and running. Just wanted to throw a tidbit at you, but I've certainly been following it on Instagram, and it's beautiful and great documenting the progress. I love how who's ever filming it, it's fun.
Yeah, they're doing a great job on that. And yeah, so that's actually your suggestion is actually what we're finding in the homeless service provision as well, is if you find somebody great, offer them, snatch them up right away.
Yeah, that's what we're doing with our shelter systems too. So there you have it. Everyone got some tips out of the prevention intervention section. Is there anything else in prevention intervention going on in Colorado before I move us on to the next treatment domain? All right.
I'm sorry, I have something, Bob. And
oh, go for it.
I have not thought about this beyond this meeting, but you know, homelessness shelters, that's the big thing I see on television and on the internet. And that's the big thing that's going around now. The Denver has a state of emergency. Is there something that behavioral health agencies and individuals do that would benefit the homeless, whether they are having behavioral health problems or not? Is there an overlap where we can become more involved and the partnerships expand? That's what I'm wondering about.
Yeah, I think there probably can be a really great update when I get to the treatment section. I'm going to go ahead and call out Kristen Toombs. Okay. And we've got some really exciting things called regional navigation centers that are opening that are going to provide a myriad of services. So hang tight on that. And then when we get to the next section, I can call out one of our colleagues to talk about what's going on in her department when it comes to behavioral health and homelessness. Very exciting new project. Anything else? Okay, because recovery always has a lot of announcements, I'm going to go ahead and jump treatment and go to recovery to give them adequate time. So I saw that on Instagram, Advocates for Recovery won the youth baseball league that they had up there. And I saw all the pictures of the AFR kids taking like a championship. Can someone talk to me more about how the kids did?
Yeah, thanks, Bob. Yeah, Sterling, and also too, just with that, I also want to just throw out Candace and the Durangos kickball team. They didn't win it all, but they came pretty darn close this year. But Travis up in Sterling and his involvement with the school system and his own kids has really transformed AFR, being able to really give back to the community and sponsor the kids' SBO league. And this is the second year in a row that they actually ended up winning it. It's not about winning it, but Travis was very happy, and we're so honored and happy for those kids up there.
Well, the kids definitely had a really, really big smile, but if anyone can go to Instagram, check out Travis's smile. He can't be more proud, and the smile can't be bigger. It was absolutely really fun to follow, and congratulations, AFR.
Yeah, it just kind of shows the work we do isn't just for the individuals that are still struggling or that are in recovery, but it's about the whole community. You know, that whole community health recovery, you know, is so important to us. So we're super happy for Travis, and he is just a big kid. So it was funny to watch him coach those teams.
And how great for the kids to see parents in recovery, so that way kids are learning earlier that recovery is possible. So that's prevention and intervention at its best.
Yeah, he's actually on vacation, but I know that he would just speak highly of it. And he's the role model in that community, you know, for what he was in his active use to who he is now in recovery, and just even outside of the organization, who he is as a community member. It's just, it speaks highly of what recovery can do for communities and also individuals.
Absolutely. What do you got going on at AFR?
It's a lot, so I'll try to kind of run through it, and I'll post up some flyers. So I don't want to forget that August, at the end of it, is Overdose Awareness Day. So Candace is going to talk about an event on the Western Slope around that, but I just didn't want to jump right into Recovery Month without acknowledging that the end of this month is Overdose Awareness. So September is National Recovery Month, if you didn't know. AFR is super busy in planning our 22nd annual Rally for Recovery that takes place in Civic Center Park Greek Amphitheater in downtown Denver. Last year, I think the totals were just under 2,200 people showed up. Pre-COVID, we were getting upwards of 4,000 people. So we're really hoping this year we see another big jump coming out of COVID. That will be on September 16th. It kicks off with a walk for recovery that starts at Union Station and walks up most likely 15th Street, not the 16th Street Mall this year because of construction. But it's a powerful walk. We make signs, people in recovery, family members, allies, everybody's along that walk to kind of bring awareness to what recovery is. And then they head into Civic Center Park where the rally kicks off. We have our amazing friends from We Are Cloud Gang, which is an East Coast based rapper group that is in recovery, will be out here sharing their story and music, food all day long, resources, anything from treatment to recovery to sober residences. We're really kind of making a call. I'll put some contact information in there, as well as we're not charging for booths or tables or anything this year. So we really want to try to drum up as much resources as possible to be in that park to serve the people that are coming through the park that need them. So if you're able and you're interested in coming and setting up what you do in the world of recovery or even mental health, please reach out to me so we can get you signed up for a free table. We're not providing tables, tents, or chairs. That's how we're able to do it for free, but all are welcome as far as the resources. I don't want to forget Angie Beertram from Pure 180 would be mad at me if I didn't mention that on September 9th is the Western Slopes Rally for Recovery. We'll be on site over in Grand Junction as well. I'll put her flyer up in the chat as well. And then on the 23rd is Sterling's second annual Rally for Recovery. Last year we had upwards of about 350 people, so we're hoping for a little bit more this year. But you know, if you've never been up and seen what recovery looks like in that small community, I urge everybody to make the 2-hour journey up to Sterling for us on the 23rd. And I also want to just mention, also on the 23rd is the Serenity Recovery Centers in Colorado Springs. It's their Rally for Recovery down in Colorado Springs. I don't have their flyer readily available, but if I find it, I will post that as well. We also have an event on August 12th that's around kind of getting everything together for the rally. We're going to have numerous events coming up for getting everything ready, getting volunteers ready, making signs. So I'll post that flyer as well. It's going to be kind of a sign making pizza party evening on August 12th. So with that being said, I think I'll pass it on to Candace real quick. So thank you.
Thanks, James. Yeah, and I'll share a little bit. I'm down here in Durango, Colorado. And yeah, I oversee operations for AFR here and up in Montrose and Delta. So yeah, pretty exciting. Valentina, our coach down there in the Montrose Delta area, she's collaborating with River Valley Health and MATA, which, oh gosh, I had it pulled up. I always forget the acronym. It is the Mexican American Development Association, where we have our office. The three of our organizations are collaborating for an International Overdose Awareness Day on August 31st at River Bottom Park in Montrose. Pretty grassroots event, just really focused on getting the community together to honor Overdose Awareness Day, share stories, free food. Narcan's going to be distributed. This is actually an event that started last year with Ollie, who was our coach, who's now moved on to Pier 180, but Valentina's doing a great job carrying the torch. So that is what we are doing there for International Overdose Awareness Day. So yeah, we're excited about that. As far as other big events on the side of the slope, nothing super large, just a lot of community events taking place in Durango and Montrose. Do you guys want to hear about those? Like,
Absolutely.
James is I don't know. Me too. I'm getting a bunch of people together here in Durango next Saturday and gonna take people on a pretty epic hike up to Ice Lakes. So we're getting pretty excited about that. Just I love the correlation between the journey of recovery and the journey of a hike. So I think it's a pretty cool experience to take folks that maybe haven't had a lot of experience out there in the big wilderness. So we're getting excited for that. James had also mentioned our kickball team that, yes, we made it 3 weeks through the tournament before we actually lost by a coin toss because we were tied up in overtime. So
A coin toss?
I know, we were like, what? So we played
Awful.
an inning. I know, we played an
Don't you know to
inning.
bring a double-headed coin for when that happens and you always pick heads?
Yeah, right. I know. Yeah, we didn't get to bring the coin, but yeah, so we kind of joked about that. But we're getting the team and the community together on Monday for just like a season send-off, barbecuing and scrimmaging. So that's something fun. It's something I've actually done with the recovery community for the last 6 years, is run a kickball team. So
And I apologize. Where is Ice Lakes? Can you tell us where in the Southwest Four Corners, which peak that is?
oh, James would know better about what peak that is, but I'll just say it's in the San Juan Mountains. And then
Basically, like, it's in the crest of basically the Silverton, like, mountain range in that area.
Oh, so it's up towards Silverton is where you're going. Okay. Got it.
Yeah, we do a little more active approach to recovery down here in Southwest Colorado, or I don't know, that's what I'm trying to do. So like inspire people to get out. So yeah, that's kind of what's coming down the pike here in Durango, and I'm sure I'll have more announcements at next month's meeting, but Valentina's got a little lake day plan for her Delta community at Schweitzer Lake in Delta. And then she's hosting a recovery vision board crafting event in Montrose actually on Saturday. So those are kind of our exciting, fun community engagement, recovery social events we're doing over here. And I have yet to plan a big recovery event in Durango, but I am working actively with like a coalition of community stakeholders on an anti-stigma work group. And we're going to start discussing an event for next September, whether it's like a parade in September to celebrate recovery. I'm not sure exactly what it'll look like, but hoping by next year we'll have a staple recovery rally or recovery parade, something to celebrate recovery down here in Durango for 2024. So
Go Skyhawks. Glad to hear it.
yeah, thank you.
I think our state TA has had her hand up patiently.
Yeah, I just wanted to let everybody know that the Peer Workforce Development Grant will be posted here pretty soon. So we have a very, very big push list, but I want to make sure everybody who wants to see this grant is on the push list. So I put my email in the chat. If you just go ahead, the best way to do this is just to send me an email and then I can make sure you're on the list or put you on the list if you're not. So emailing me would be the best way to go. So yeah, it's finally happening. We're very excited about it. And this is for peer training and peer certifications.
Could that be put into an email, Donda, for everyone that's not present today, so we can make sure that communication gets to the full council? Thank you so much. Thank you for that great information. Anything else coming out of recovery?
Oh, Shannon has her hand up.
Hi, Shannon.
Hi, Bob. Hi, everyone. I just thought I'd hop on and just do a quick shout out for the Pueblo County Peer Pod group. So all of the peers who work in Pueblo County have, they've created their own work group. And once again, this will be their second year. They've expanded their booth space at the state fair. So we will have a safe recovery zone area. It'll be there the entirety of the fair. So when the fair is open, we are there. And we encourage anyone to come down. If you're down at the state fair, come by and find us. This year, hopefully, will be easier to find. We'll have bright yellow recovery tablecloths. You are more than welcome. And we invite anyone who's a peer or in the field to take a shift, and I'll send Donda that information as well. But you're more than welcome to send down information on your programs or whatever you have going on so that they can share that out throughout the community. Pueblo, we often work with lots of people who start their recovery journey in our county, but they end up going back up north or out west or out east or down south further. So we always try to be connected well. Jean Blackwell is taking over the lead on our peer program and that county work group. So super excited for that. And then we're just trying to get stuff going back again. It's been a bit of a roller coaster down further south. So we were getting our recovery events happening back there with our movie nights and our skate nights and our trauma TI yoga. So I will be hopefully working with lots of communities out east on my new project and helping them collaborate and have more recovery things happening in those communities. So anyone that's in those communities, Crowley, Kiowa, Prowers, Pueblo, Otero, Bent, Los Animas, and Warfano, I will be connecting up with you.
Yeah, we joined you last year and had a great time.
Yes. So come again, Bob. Anyone is welcome. Anyone is welcome. Even
It's a good
if you're
time.
down there visiting, stop by the booth.
If you guys have not been to the Colorado State Fair, I've got news for you. If you think it's hokey and too long of a drive and you think it might be a little boring, I got news for you. For a guy like me that's willing to take a 2-hour drive down there, I'm like, okay, where am I going? I had the best time at the Colorado State Fair. It's actually really a lot of fun and everyone should go check it out. It's a great family event, individual event, but the Colorado State Fair is actually surprisingly cool. And I had a good time. So I was shocked actually how much fun it was. So I'll be going back. So just want to give a plug out to the Colorado State Fair. Anything else going on in our recovery community? Well, I have an announcement. Our recovery community at Mile High is called Transcend. Our Transcend department is a step down after treatment. So it's a more intense step down aftercare model. And then from there, it goes more into community. Our mountain facility in Breckenridge, Summit County, we have these two young, fantastic gentlemen that graduated up in the mountains from Jaywalker. They're 20 and 24. They're absolutely fantastic recovery coaches. They are going to have their first recovery barbecue up in Summit County, where they work at the Frisco Marina Park, Friday, August 11th from 5 to 7. We also have fly fishing recovery groups and a lot going on in Summit County every couple of weeks. The fly fishing group, I don't know how these guys are pulling 28 and 38-inch rainbow trouts out of some of our rivers up in Summit County, but these kids are great. So if any other organizations want to link up and head out with our two young guys, there's hikes, there's fishing, there's mountain biking, there's learning how to tie your own fly and do that for fly fishing. And we will be having snowboarding camps this winter as well. So any other updates? All right, let's move to treatment. What updates are in treatment?
Well, I feel like, Bob, you mentioned, and somebody else mentioned about homelessness and all the good work there. So I can jump in again, Kristen Toombs. So we have lots going on. Let's see. So one thing is, since we were just talking about the southeast corner, is that in October, we will be hitting 10 years that the Fort Lyon Supportive Residential Community is in operation. And so we're working with the Colorado Coalition for the Homeless on doing some sort of celebratory event in mid-October. So we'll be sure to share that with folks. For folks who don't know, it is a transitional housing program, totally voluntary for adults who do not have housing and wish to focus on recovery. So it's a recovery-oriented supportive community with a lot of focus on peers and being community led. So very excited about that. Based on the lessons learned and success from Fort Lyon, we also recently received some of the American Rescue Plan Act funds to create, to convert another piece of state property, this time in Arapahoe County in Watkins, where there used to be a Division of Youth Services boarding school program that we are in the process of converting into something very similar to Fort Lyon. It will actually have treatment on site. It's called the Ridgeview Supportive Residential Community. We don't expect it to open for another 1.5 years or so, because there does need to be some renovations to convert it from being a boarding school for youth to transitional housing and treatment voluntarily for adults. So stay tuned. Also happy to bring it to this group to get some input. Right now, what we're doing is what's called the feasibility master plan. So, okay, we want to have treatment in a building that was a dorm. What do we need to do to physically change the space? Right. So it's very much about, like, we got architects and facility folks, but we are going to be digging in on the programmatic side. So what are we missing? What do we need? And then both are open to the state. Anybody in the state can go. The beauty of both of these supportive residential communities, besides the fact that they're strong component around peers, is that you can stay for up to 2 years and even more, so that the timing is focused on where you are with your recovery path and on your return to the community. So we're not going to put you can only do 28 days or 180 days. It's where are you on your path? Where are you then on securing housing? And there will be staff there to help with that. So, and we will need to fill the workforce for that campus as well. So it sounds like we have a lot of opportunities for finding amazing folks to staff some of these exciting projects. And then what Bob mentioned was we have funding also coming out that's for what's called a navigation campus. So the concept behind navigation campuses is that we work hard to co-locate all the resources someone needs who's in a housing crisis, so that they can focus on whatever is happening for their crisis and moving out of that, instead of having to focus on, where do I find food? Where can I go to the bathroom? Who do I have to go to get my ID? Where do I sign up for this program or this housing? That we try to bring it all together so you can have your basic needs met and work on your path towards housing and other goals. So absolutely, as Bob was mentioning, we absolutely want to make sure that everything that a person needs it can be located or coordinated through those navigation campuses. Absolutely recovery supports will be key. Again, the aim is that it is low barrier, trauma informed, follows what the person's pathway is, but that those resources are there depending on where the person is or what goals they have. So just to get you on the loop again, so Fort Lyon is already open, 10 years in October, amazing. We'll stay tuned for that. Ridgeview, over the next year, we're going to be talking about digging into what the program should look like, and then it'll open up hopefully the following year. So we still got a little bit of time, but want to make sure this group is looped in. And then for the campuses, we just received the applications. The navigation campuses are specifically for the metro area, not because the rest of the state doesn't need it, but because of the high volume of both services and need, that the co-location just feels like it's really needed. The nice thing is that we can award to multiple campuses so that we can have a whole ecosystem so people don't have to come into Denver. And so we actually received 6 applications to create 6 different campuses in the metro area. So we have a team that is working hard to review those. Once they're awarded, we really would like to make sure that those projects are engaging with the community to make sure that we are creating programs and spaces and partnerships that really make sense and are in the best intention. So I would absolutely, I think one of the things, we do many wonderful things in Colorado. One of the things that I think we have an opportunity here with these projects I just mentioned is how do we help better intentionally connect behavioral health supports and housing supports. And that starts from outreach through emergency and temporary housing all the way to permanent housing. So would love to make sure this group stays in the loop. I might actually, if it would be okay, I'd love to talk with folks about, we have some amazing new staff that I think would be awesome at joining this team here and being able to share about those that are actually working on those specific projects. So happy to have them start joining and or have them come present at another time, or we can set up another time. So I'll stop there. We also have all of the other stuff we're doing all the time. So happy to talk with folks if you want to hear more about what's happening in your particular community, or you want to brainstorm. Happy to share with you what awards have been going out, what projects we know are happening, all that good stuff.
Yeah, it's truly remarkable. Kristen, I would say once we are through the recommendations and making sure that we got everything buttoned up tight for the BHA, it might be nice during the lull season of this council to do a presentation. You guys have a pretty nice slide deck on Fort Lyons, which is really helpful, as well as the new Ridgeview campus and the navigation centers. So I think it'll be great to show that all of these locations have a really strong peer and treatment component. So it really dovetails with the work that we do here. So we certainly would welcome your slide deck presentations and to meet your staff at a future meeting.
Beautiful. Thank you. Yeah, very excited and excited. Thank you in advance for everybody giving your expert thoughts and input. We really want it. So looking forward to it. Thanks.
Yeah, it'll be a fantastic update for us since it is a behavioral health update from DOLA, which is great. And we appreciate the partnership with housing because healthcare and housing and behavioral health is healthcare. So we know that that improves the determinants of health. Anything else going on in the treatment community?
Charlie Davis has his hand up.
Charlie Davis.
Hey, Bob, how are you?
I'm good. You know to speak up. This is the fluid part. I hope you're going to talk about Circle.
I can give a quick update. We are on our way to building our new building. Foundation was poured last week, and so hopefully we will have a new Circle facility come this spring of 24. So we are excited. We'll be able to have 20 beds in this facility. So we're very excited about that. I did want to point out to the group that there is a licensing hearing. I just found out about it for the new BHA rules. I believe I'm trying to find it here. I get too many things open on my desktop here.
And what type of hearing is it, Charlie?
It's a rulemaking hearing at Nancy's Place in Frisco on September 8th regarding the rules of the BHE licensing.
Okay.
I don't think it's been too widely disseminated through the treatment world. So I just want to make sure everybody was aware of that.
Yeah, it's been a difficult process for providers.
It has. One of the concerning things I have that one of my staff has kind of read through it is they're kind of switching gears on mat services and making therapy optional, which is a big concern for our agency and our area. So I just wanted to make sure everybody was aware of that. And
We
to-
should bring that to treatment subcommittee.
Yes.
So we can certainly talk about that. I would have a concern with that as well.
Yep.
What
And
else is on?
you know, we're just, we continue to try to find staff, and we were fortunate enough to get some grants on workforce as well as some criminal justice. So we're working on those. And again, just trying to find workforce. That's our #1 priority right now.
Sounds like we need to get a bus and leave the state and go around and pick people up, import them in.
Amen. Thanks.
Thanks for all that you do, Charlie. Make sure you're taking pictures, and we'd love to see the progress of the Circle program. I've been a fan of the Circle program in my early HIV days when I was working at CU and dually diagnosed and being able to send people. It was the only place back in the day that people would accept people with an HIV diagnosis to do co-occurring work. So always appreciative to the Circle program, and congratulations on that. Laura, I see you. Ryan, I see you. We're fluid right now, so just jump in, friend.
Yeah. Hi, everybody. Staffing and hiring problems, of course, kind of continue. I think I had a hard time hearing you, Charlie, but I think that's what Charlie was talking about. I wanted to mention something really interesting that occurred this month. For those of you who don't know, is a license renewal for basically all counselors and social workers and marriage and family therapists in this state. They renew their license every 2 years. This year, the license fees were waived, which was really just a nice little perk for providers to be able to receive. And interestingly, was basically the exact thing that we suggested and talked about in some of our recommendations for this year. So that was really exciting to see that.
And it was a huge for at least 160 of my employees. They were absolutely shocked not to have to pay that $200 and some odd this year. It really made people happy. So that was a huge boost. And whoever's on the call today from the BHA and can relay to Dola and others, Dora, that was a great hit for the community, and they were greatly appreciative. Ryan, it's fluid, man. Jump in.
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page with the rulemaking hearing that Charlie brought up. So that's the first reading for the new or the drafted BHE and all of our provider rules at the BHA. So what that means is that it is the first reading at the State Board of Human Services. The State Board of Human Services is a traveling board. They're our type 1 board that is the entity that actually approves the rules that we, as a state agency underneath the Department of Human Services, we go through the State Board of Human Services. So we draft them and they approve them. So that meeting on September 8th is in Frisco, so up in Summit County. And then, so that's where we present the whole rulemaking packet. We are assuming that it will be all BHA, all provider rules for that full meeting up in the mountains there on September 8th. And then it's usually back-to-back months. We are taking a break to make sure that we have time to address any of the comments, concerns, questions that come up, whether from State Board of Human Services members directly or folks providing testimony at the State Board of Human Services meeting on September 8th. And then the second hearing for rules will be November 3rd, which is downtown at the CDHS building. That would be ideally the adoption of those rules that then they sit for essentially a month, almost 2 months, which then they need to go into effect January 1 of 2024. So that's just the timing of this next step of the regulatory rewrite process.
So Ryan, because I've had the opportunity to chair BHAC and BPAC, I think community members and treatment providers feel comfortable reaching out to me to carry the water to the state, which really isn't my role. But I do try to do my best in bringing forth community concerns. So when it comes to the licensing, and anyone in this group, please speak up and back me up on this. What I'm hearing from community is, are these going to be soft rules where when they get implemented, that the document is going to be fluid, where if the rule isn't working or if something's not working with the new license, is it fluid enough where community can come back and say, we didn't get this right, and can we collaborate to get it right? Or is this going to be one of these things where it's like, well, we had a meeting in Frisco, we had a meeting at the state, you guys weren't able to show up or communicate, but the rule is the rule is the rule now, and tough luck, go dunk your head. So how flexible is it going to be to make sure that we can collaborate and get it right and make it successful? I guess that would be a question that I hear often.
Yeah, and a legitimate question for sure. And this is where we want to make sure that a regulatory process, we know that we aren't going to get everything absolutely right the first go around. We fully expect pretty much every single month from here on out, we will be at State Board of Human Services providing updates. Ideally, not massive overhauls every single time we go to State Board, because this is just an incredibly intense, like hundreds of pages of rule, right? If we can go there with breakdowns of certain topics, makes it a lot easier that the stakeholder process to get to that spot about what actually makes the most sense. We are fully committed to that at the BHA to ensure that we get these things right. The idea is really a more of a soft rollout when they do go into effect, because we know that this is a pretty massive change to what licensing and oversight of providers across the state looks like. So this is that piece that's been in the works really since 2019 when the BHE bill passed. It's just the transition from CDPHE to the BHA, which there's the complexity in it there, right? Because there's BHA rules that exist right now, there's CDPHE rules that exist right now, and trying to merge those into a one rule volume.
Right. Ryan, I can tell you, at least right now, since we're in the treatment community, and the treatment community should speak up, and I don't want to take any more time on this, but it is an important issue, and it is part of the rule package. Psychiatrists and psych nurse practitioners and everybody that's involved in prescribing medications and medication-assisted treatment, including methadone, are concerned about I don't know if it's a rumor, if it's a reality, Charlie can speak up on this and others, that there is the possibility that the state is going to put a rule in that you can just do your psychotropic meds, you can do your methadone, but not see a therapist, and combined medication-assisted treatment, and keep it that people have to be attending treatment when they're also on medications. So Charlie, I heard this from my medical staff. You brought it up lightly. Is there anyone else that can kind of help me on this, explain a really big concern right away? And then I need to move us on.
Yep, I will bring it back to our quality and standards team to get
Charlie, did you have anything else on that?
Bob, I don't. I just got this last night, so I haven't had a chance to read through the rules to find it, but that's what I was told, that it's in there as an option, not that it's optional. That the therapy part was optional with MAT services. But as soon as I find it, I will send it to you.
Great, thank you. Ryan, can you look into that? Because that kind of went around really late last night, and it's been floating around for a while. So that would be something that I guess the treatment community as well as our medical providers on staff would like to talk about. That can affect their license, is what they were telling me. If someone's not in treatment and they're abusing drugs, whether on psychotropics or other medications, it could affect their medical license. So it does bring up concerns on the medical side of the behavioral health side of things. So I just wanted to share that. Are there any other discussions, please, so I can get off my soapbox and move on and get us to break?
So Bob, this is Lori. What I can tell you is in one of the rule review meetings that I was in, that was part of the rules, and it was a very big discussion in terms of people not liking that and wanting that to be coupled together in terms of medications and therapy. The group of folks from the BHA heard that loud and clear. The concern that was being voiced around that being optional, and they were going to go back and look at that. So I would be surprised at that if that is not one of the revisions that happened and would be heard on September when they present those rules. But when that packet comes out, I would definitely would be an area that I would look at to see how that was rewritten. If at all.
I couldn't imagine, Ms. Banks, how the psychiatrists and nurse practitioners would feel with their licenses prescribing serious medications without the supervision of case management and therapists. So I'm sure the mental health centers had concerns about that, and rightfully so. So thank you, Lori, for bringing that up, and certainly keep bringing that back to the group. So we can continue to address and support the BHA rulemaking process. And anything else that comes up, the more proactive we are, the better the product and the BHA can be. So remember, it's our community department, built for community by community. So I want to remind everyone, just stay involved. The staff are great. Sometimes the conversations can be contentious, but who cares? The point is, they're supposed to be, so we can get to an end product that works for the people that we treat. Is there anything else that we need to bring up?
Bob, I hate to interrupt. I did find in this packet I got, it says it's on page 10 of the rules, and I have an analysis packet that I got, and it's on page 33 of the analysis that Tom had sent out, I believe.
Do you mind sending that section to Donda and then sharing it, please, Donda, so we can kind of stay in the loop on this? Thanks, everybody. Is there anything else so I can close this part, folks? Are we good? Any other announcements? Anything else anyone wants to share? All right. Friends, this was a very robust part of what's going on in Colorado. I appreciate absolutely the in-depth conversation. I do want to do a 10-minute break with your blessing so we can get to the other very important parts of our agenda today. So everyone, please do come back at 10:15 and the recording can stop. We can go to recording. Thank you so much, Donda. Appreciate you. I'm going to give it like 30 more seconds to see everyone's screens start popping back on as they're running back to their computers and turning on their cameras, and everyone's got something to drink, I see. All right, so the next part is something that happens every other year. And this is a really fun discussion, and I'm going to combine these together, my friends, to the BHA, so we can actually have a fluid conversation and combine these two agenda items. So that way it's more of a cohesive conversation. So we are going to talk about the recommendations that we turned in. And then what the state is going to do is come back and provide us feedback. And then what typically happens is we negotiate, collaborate, and we try to do the best we can at making sure that community and lived experience and prevention is still represented from Coloradans. But sometimes we have to tweak the language to make sure we're meeting statutory and grant requirements. So that's where the state technical part comes in sometimes in the feedback. So everybody just needs to be flexible, and we just need to go through the process and see what we came up with. So I would imagine at this point, I'm going to turn it over to my state colleagues to lead us through what outcomes did you guys receive from us, and how are you feeling about the recommendations? And Ryan, you've been with us for a long time. So brother, where do you want to get started?
Let's just jump right in. Donna's going to lead the slides here, but I'll kind of talk through this. So what I did with these slides is, it's going to look like a ton of slides, and it is a ton of slides because we got 14 recommendations from Bhpac. So each recommendation has a slide that I want to specifically stop and have a conversation about. I think there's some foundational pieces that we need to touch on, right? I mean, there's the whole treatment pieces, there's a lot of workforce development stuff, and then having a robust conversation about all of those things is, I think, the spot to go. Bob, you're right on with hey, there are some federal legal requirements for what the role of Bhpac is. And I think those are the first couple slides that I put together here. So Donna, if you move to the next slide, right, just generally level setting the block grants. So these recommendations are going directly into our application for the state to receive the 2 block grants. It's a dual application. Our application is currently online. I have a link right there that I'll put in the chat too. Our draft application was posted online on last Friday, the 28th, which you can find it there. It's 177 pages long. Also within that site that I just linked, you can submit comments through using the Google form, as well as links to other resources on there. This is the draft of the application that we will be sending a version of this after we get the feedback to our federal partners at SAMHSA, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration, which is required for us as a state to receive the 2 block grants, the Community Mental Health Services block grant and the Substance Abuse Prevention and Treatment block grant. It's a combined application. But so that is the 177 pages of that initial draft. We have to post the draft publicly for at least a month. So that's why it was kind of a mad dash to get this application put in there. And like I said earlier, ultimately your recommendations will be formally put into that application as well when we send it over to our federal partners. Questions about that before we move on to the next piece about specificity of the grants? All right, Donna, move to the next slide, please. Purpose of the block grants. So federally required, there's some legalese.
Ryan.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry,
sounds like
real
Frank.
quick. Yes, it is. Sorry if I missed it. Did you have a date for feedback for the draft application?
August 23rd.
Thank you.
Yep, so feedback, you can submit feedback through that Google form link there through the August 2023. So purpose of block grants. So this is from federal statute. So it's programs for prevention, treatment, and recovery supports and other services that will support service that will supplement services covered by Medicaid, Medicare, and private insurance. So there's 4 specific purposes: fund priority treatment, fund priority treatment for those not covered, fund primary prevention. So this is a piece within the prevention and the substance use block grant, is there's a specific 20% set aside for primary prevention within that one of the 2 block grants. We'll see a recommendation that recommends setting aside 20% from the mental health block grant for the same purpose. And then also part of the funds for the block grant are about collecting performance as outcome data as well. So those are really the 4 main things that are federally required of the block grant dollars for states to use. Yeah, Margie, I think these were included in the full slide deck that I think gets sent out. So what I did with each one, Dondi, you can go to the next slide, is that Right, recovery recommendations, there was 3 specific ones, so I just put each one of them on a slide. And so then, the whole idea within this conversation is we actually have a conversation about this and where things are and where things go. Right, kind of just like Bob identified. So first one that we got, the 20% set aside for recovery support services from the 10%, and further recovery community centers, mental health clubhouse, and recovery support service organizations. So the initial response from the BHA really is we are running through our funding models to support the full behavioral health service continuums. So they're coordinated, cohesive, and effective. A key thing that I want to point out here is that when the BHA was created and that authorizing statute that it sets the core safety net services, recovery support services was included in there. So as we build out what the safety net service delivery looks like, it 100% includes recovery support services. Right now, the BHA just currently isn't in a position to allocate certain percentages of funding because we need to come up with the whole, how are we going to pay for the system as a whole, which we're doing right now through the assets and caps funding analysis that we're working on right now with healthcare policy and financing, and other state agency partners. So I want to throw that out there first. And questions, comments, thoughts, feelings?
I do. So there's been a lot of legislature conversation where they've been in the newspaper talking about the BHA has overspent, underspent, understaffed, had to come back for a supplemental ask. Is this all part of the study that's being done, Ryan, or are you talking about something different?
So it's a little bit of both. So it's ensuring that the BHA has what we need to be a successful state agency, but ultimately to get to the spot that the BHA, to be a successful agency, to ensure that we're meeting our core requirement of creating a behavioral health system that meets the needs of all people in Colorado, right? So it's a both and.
Okay. The only thing I would suggest is really including that part of discussions in future meetings so we can be of a support to our BHA colleagues, certainly in BPAC and BHAC. I know these conversations have been taking place, but I think those of us in the lived community and this council would absolutely support the BHA and staff in making sure funding for our communities and the BHA is there. And I'm pretty comfortable speaking on the behalf of both the groups that I sit on, that we are wedded to making this successful since we are the citizens. Our loved ones have gone through these processes. So the more you bring us and the more you include us, the more we can educate legislature on the why. So my ask is please don't forget about us. You have a tremendous resource to support you guys.
Nope, I appreciate that, Bob, and that's exactly what we need out of community partnerships, right? Like this is the heart of why the BHA was created, is that it's a system that is informed by the people that utilize the system, and that's every single one of us. So I appreciate that reframe as well, Bob. All right, so any other, James?
So if I'm understanding right, like besides the federally mandated 20% set aside, there's really been no percentages that have been figured out as far as like where the block grant's going, correct?
So the other piece to that is that it's how services in Colorado are funded. It's so braided and blended that it's the actual percentage of set aside for a single grant is there's a level of complexity to it that we're just not there related to the funding of the system as a whole.
James, it hasn't been my experience in going through this process that this group actually gets involved in the percentages. You don't always know year to year what the award is going to be, which is also, sometimes it's larger, sometimes it's not larger. So we're not really responsible for the percentages. We're responsible for the recommendations. When the state finally decides what the percentages are based on when the award comes in, they have brought that back to us in the past. And when that happens, that's when we can kind of say, hey, there's not enough for recovery, or we need to move things around a little bit. And we've been able to do that prior to COVID. So James, I would say that would be, your question right now is premature, but don't think for a second that we can't be a part of that conversation. So we kind of have to wait to see what the award is so we can kind of weigh in and support the BHA staff on getting ready to reallocate some of those. And then it'll go out to bid, and then the MSOs, which will eventually be BOSSOs. So that'll all get figured out. But I wanted to chime in that we do get a chance to talk about that, but not at this point.
Gotcha. Thank you, Bob, for the clarification. Do we
You're
see any reason to be worried that we won't, like recovery support services won't be getting at least the 10%? Or is it still too premature to even answer that question?
It's probably a little premature to even answer that question, but I think the core piece is that recovery is included throughout our BHA charge in our state statute, right? So like there is a renewed, yes, recovery is part of our full continuum of service delivery, which I think that's what this, I think the important piece is here. I think there's an aspect of, I love the recommendations that come in like this, because it's not, I don't see this as specific recommendation only for the block grant, right? We need to address these things as recommendations come in about the whole system. Like the block grant plays a role in that, but we are talking about, or this is how I see it, it's more of recommendations for the system as a whole, right? And there's this avenue that there's the specific requirement of BPAC for the block grant recommendations, but these recommendations are received and addressed on a larger scale for the behavioral health system as a whole, and how that overarching funding plays into it as well. So I don't want folks within BPAC or guests on the call to be discouraged with, hey, it's not as specific. We didn't get this addressed specifically. We are 100% taking these things on as a larger system approach to how, and the priorities of the community.
Awesome. Thank you, Ryan. And as always, thank you so much for all the work that you're doing. I just, it's just important that, what we've been doing in the recovery, especially in the communities, it's working for that sustained recovery piece, I think on both sides, in the mental health and in that. So just want to stress that.
Appreciate all the work you're doing as well, and this group as a whole. So if we want to move to the next one within recovery recommendations. Megan, do you want to take this one, or I can?
Yeah, I can take this one. So this one is regarding youth recovery support services. So the recommendation to fund implementation and or expansion of youth and adolescent recovery support services, fostering whole person recovery to an underserved population championed by the youth. So with the Youth Behavioral Health Plan, it's expected to be released in the next couple of months. And this has been a collaborative effort between the BHA, HCPF, Healthcare Policy and Financing, the Department of Human Services, the Office of Children, Youth and Families, and the operationalization of the CYF plan. We are currently working very collaboratively with the Office of Healthcare Policy and Financing. And in our upcoming town hall on August 23rd, we'll have an overview of what that plan will be and how we've been working. So I would encourage everyone, if you're interested in learning more about that, I think that would be a great town hall to attend for more information on that. Are there any questions on this one?
Is there a link or something to that town hall for information?
It is on the BHA stakeholder calendar, and I can put a link in the chat.
And Megan, when did you say it's getting released?
So it'll be released in the next couple of months. We don't have an exact date for it. But we'll have on, what I was mentioning is on August 23rd for the BHA town hall, we'll have more information about the not say that word today. Anyway, about the plan.
So just as tying a couple agenda items today for the legislative update, there's an interim committee, the Child Welfare Interim Study Committee. On August 22nd, there is Healthcare Policy and Financing, the Department of Human Services, Office of Children, Youth and Families, and BHA will be on a panel talking about the youth plan as well. So yeah, that week will be an important one about releasing those things, as Megan identified as well, through a couple different channels. Bonnie, I'm assuming your hand up was from that question about the link.
That's correct. Thank you.
Any other questions related to this one? And once again, I reiterate that part of the core 14 safety net services are for children, youth, and adults. That includes recovery support services. So youth recovery 100% included in our statutory charge of the BHA as well. Yep, so then recommendation 3 of 3 is the transportation for recovery support services to address barriers in rural and frontier areas to have better access, which includes compensation for drivers, education for staff, and vehicle upkeep. I like this one where it's, yes, I mean, how do we ensure that people getting to where they need to go and to receive the services they need? I think this is one of those ones that would love to work closely with this group and the recovery communities to really see how this can functionally work and identify clear funding models. So kind of the piece where I went with this was like the new secure transportation benefit through healthcare policy and financing. Obviously that isn't this, because that's more of a community-based response. So people in crisis don't have to go on the back of a police car or a ambulance, right? But I think there's an aspect of that model that plays into this recommendation. But if I'm completely wrong with that, like, here's our opportunity to have a discussion.
Ryan, that would dovetail with treatment providers' needs of not using ambulances and others. If they're safe, I've been using Uber, but for the homeless community to get to residential treatment, for women to try to get to our special connections facilities, and not using, police or expensive ambulances. So I would think this need is broader than the recovery support recommendation. We also have needs of, like, let me give you an example. Soon as Charlie opens up that circle program, I know I have 3 or 4 people that need to be inside there. What do I do to get them down there safely? They're not necessarily in behavioral health crisis that qualify for an ambulance, but they're also not safe enough to go on their own. So therefore, there is a transportation issue between the campus of Pueblo's State Hospital and the metropolitan area. So we don't really have an appropriate way to access residential beds without hospital transport. We have vans and have been doing this. Our peers have been using our vans and doing this. I'm uncomfortable with doing that any further because I do believe there's a liability with that. And I don't believe that the liability of putting my peers in a situation of having to drive them to residential outpatient treatment is necessarily appropriate, that they're not trained to do that. But I think Colorado and this group can come up with a really good civilian transportation system to transport either people experiencing homelessness, adolescents, or adults to facilities safely. So for years, this has been a concern of mine. I don't know if Marcella wants to step up or anyone else, but for mountain communities, it's very hard to get them to the metro area. We have to drive up and get them. When I used to live in Durango, we had to drive pretty far to get people. So I think this is a big issue, and I don't want to talk any further because I don't want to waste people's time, but I think it's a big issue that we should discuss, Ryan.
Correct. And oh.
Marcella, you went back on mute. We heard you for a minute and then there you go.
Because I only spoke for a moment. I completely did. Oh, I said correct to everything that Bob was saying. And he closed by saying he didn't want to take too much time. So I was really brief because I agree. Thank you.
This is Shannon. Can I just say one thing on that? I think if I'm not mistaken, Candace and James can help update me. One of the pieces too that we really wanted to look at was helping people get to the recovery services that normally are not included in a med ride. So places that they would be going on possibly a regular basis that they don't have transportation to, or it's too far away or whatever, but it's recovery oriented, but doesn't qualify in for a med ride. Is that right, James?
Yes, correct.
Thank you, Shannon. Candace?
Yeah, thank you for bringing that up, Shannon, because that was just something I wanted to iterate too. Like, while I, of course, appreciate the safety concerns, and I think that's very valid and should be considered in these decisions. That was part of the barrier. Like, as a person that works in, a recovery community organization, one of the things that is really crucial is helping people connect to the community. So while we are resource navigators and being able to help them get to treatment resources, there are some like resources that do exist while they are lacking still in rural areas. But, folks in rural communities like can't make it to those support meetings and make those like crucial connections to the community or like other social events. So that was kind of, when we were developing this recommendation, that was, at least in my mind, like the really important part was like, how do we provide resources in supporting people making those important community connections in addition to, the treatment needs. But that is all.
Yeah, so to recap and make sure that I have it, like this recommendation was specific to kind of the recovery support services and ensuring that there is like the non-medical need and transportation between services within we'll call it the recovery specific continuum. Bob, what you brought up, there's also this larger need for a clear transportation plan that goes from the highest level of maybe treatment need, including the transition between levels of care or provider types that kind of play into this picture of transportation and transportation planning and benefits, but like wanting to make sure that this is remaining as a recommendation for the recovery continuum.
Yeah, and then the just putting on the radar scope that I think we need to have further conversations for the treatment committee and you is how do we do that without law enforcement, which isn't safe? And how do we do that without, expensive ambulance rides on our Medicaid tab? And then how can taxis can help locally with a doctor's order, but that's not what I'm talking about. This is much more of a significant lead than the medical vouchering system that does exist, and you can also use Uber. So just everyone, we just need to keep on our radar scope now that the hospitals are opening back up and expanding, universities expanding beds, I'm expanding beds. There's going to be a transportation need. Certainly, Kristen Toombs is opening up a ton of beds. There's going to have to be secure transportation for individuals to get to these campuses, and these individuals that are doing the transportation need to be trained. You can't just throw someone in a van with someone that's experiencing homelessness that's lit. You need to have a rapport and you need to be safe. So I think there is a overall transportation conversation for the state to have with community, including with DOLA and behavioral health. So I see you two in my Hollywood Square, so I'm just giving you guys snaps to have a chat and come back and talk with us, because we certainly need your support when it comes to transportation. Thank you, Kristen and Ryan.
This is Margie. I just want to add that that is a huge issue for families with children, and the reliability and safe and secure transportation needs are so huge. I can't tell you how many times families, the agencies they're working with, the driver doesn't show up, either at the school setting to transport. This is huge, and oftentimes the families are penalized because something didn't happen when it had nothing to do with them, but it had to do with them trusting a transportation process. So this is something that would be hugely important from the child and family world.
Go ahead, Ryan. I'm going to move us forward, but Donda, if you can place this on next month's agenda to make sure that this parking lot issue, since it's got a lot of flavor to it, we should probably stay on top of this. And but in the interest of time, please continue, Ryan.
Yep, so that was the 3 recovery recommendations. First off, I didn't miss any of them, right? Like, so I think those came from a few months back because they were in our first round of, right? So I think those were the 3. Just want to make sure that we're clarifying that, and then we can move on to the next level. I see James shaking his head a little bit, nodding. Yes, thumbs up, double thumbs up as well. So then we'll move to prevention here in the sake of time. 3 from prevention. We talked about this briefly before, the allocating the 20% mental health block grant. There is the current 20% substance use block grant set aside. I'm assuming this recommendation is to align block grant recommendations. Honestly, the same response about we're just not there with what allocation of funding looks like. And there's a next level of prevention complexity here because of where prevention ended up when the BHA was created, where the legacy program or the unit within formerly Office of Behavioral Health, Community Behavioral Health, and then a short amount of time in the BHA, that prevention unit moved over to the health department or Department of Public Health and Environment, which is why our wonderful Bonnie is no longer with the BHA and identifies herself as a CDPHE staff, right? So there's a level of complexity there that also plays into this, but ultimately kind of the same response from the recovery recommendation about allocation of the percentages, right? Prevention still plays a role within the full continuums of care. We're just not there as a state to have allocation determinations made yet.
Well, Bonnie needs to come home to where I think she belonged. So I think that was a mistake on the behalf of state administrators, but certainly this commission and others can bring Bonnie back is my vote. Prevention really should stick with treatment, intervention, and prevention. That's our continuum of care. And that's how we manage people moving towards recovery and working with adolescents. So love CDPHE, fantastic department, but we want our colleague back. They can't have her.
Right now that ship has sailed, but we can talk through even the next recommendation here about what the collaborative partnerships look like. So yeah, through a collaborative process, create a statewide definition of prevention. Yes, this is, I think, the heart of the BHA. Really is that entity that is supposed to pull state agencies together to come up with a unified, cohesive structure and system for behavioral health that also includes prevention, right? Even though it's not prevention coming out directly programs of the BHA, but ultimately it was about maximizing the expertise of that CDPHE's larger prevention services division plays into what was moved over from the old legacy OBH program into CDPHE. So, I mean, I think this is kind of one of those recommendations that isn't necessarily block grant specific, but ultimately a call to the BHA to ensure that we are meeting our core mission and vision and values of creating a collaborative partnership and making sure that our formal agreement with CDPHE includes prevention and statewide definitions of what different levels of prevention even mean. Bonnie.
And I absolutely agree, Ryan. And actually, there are things in the works in the prevention scene that definitely are working towards this common shared definition. One of my colleagues, Tammy Clark, is charged with facilitating and overseeing a prevention collaborative where all of the different funders throughout the state that work in prevention get together. And she's also included players that we haven't worked with before, such as the National Guard and other military entities. And I think last week I participated in phase 1 of 2 of creating a common definition. Something that sounds very simple. It's a lot more complicated than one would think, but we are working towards it. And, you know, once we do have those definitions, I'll definitely share. And I'd also be interested in receiving feedback from the group.
Thanks, Bonnie. And I think that's a call out back to BPAC, is that you're not off the hook when you just submit recommendations, even if it's only once every other year. So we got some things to come back to BPAC with. So
I wanted to jump in really quick on this one and just add to, just for all of your awareness, as we are building out the division for intergovernmental and community engagement, we're currently in the hiring process for an equitable access prevention specialist. So this will be someone that will be within my division that will work very closely with CDPHE on all things prevention, so that we're ensuring that those gaps are getting filled, and that it's very collaborative between the two agencies.
Megan, do you mind sharing a job description so this advisory council can understand what it is you're talking about? The title is really fancy. So what do they actually do?
I can put together a brief job description. So they will work to align the agencies to make sure on all things prevention. So right now, I know that that's a concern that has often come up is, well, what happens now that prevention is not at the BHA? And so they will be very focused on all things within prevention, ensuring that the BHA is aware of all things that are happening, that the prevention team at CDPHE is working collaboratively with the BHA. You know, really, we're all in this together to design this across government agencies, not together. And so they will also be looking at the formal agreement document and ensuring that there's movement happening with that and having some accountability there. And this is a unique position in that we worked closely with CDPHE. They helped write some of it, just so that it was, you know, a collaborative process from the very beginning.
Great, wonderful. Well, future agenda item, we would welcome to learn more about this. Years ago, when I was younger, we had a position like this in the state that went between the departments, and I think his name was Jose. What was his name, Marcella? But he was the intergovernmental. Yes.
With the consortium now?
He's with the consortium now. Okay.
Yeah.
He held a position like this that went between all state government agencies and kept prevention glued together. So we've had a model and somebody doing this before, but there's somebody within the state that had this position for years and then it went away. You might want to reach out to Jose because he certainly worked a lot. And he was based out of the governor's office, but worked with OBH extensively. So where is he now? Consortium?
He's with oh my goodness, I forget the full name, so maybe someone can help me. It's the consortium, I want to say maybe the consortium for prescription drug. There's a third word there. I'm gonna Google it real quick and then I'll get back to you.
Well, Megan, I just wanted to offer a resource for you that there's someone around that actually did that intergovernment kind of prevention work. So, well, I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see it come back. Congratulations. Ryan, please.
Yep, and then moving to the next one, I think it has a similar response from us, is that, yes, there's a lot of kind of content in here, but really it's designed, my understanding of this recommendation really is designed to kind of lead the collaborative effort into, hey, here's some steps to identify, create, and streamline prevention programming. I think this is a core piece to why policymakers had decided to move the prevention unit from OBH into CDPHE. So yeah, we will make sure that our partners within CDPHE kind of have this framework, as well as when Megan gets her new prevention liaison staff, kind of focusing on this as well. So. Right, kind of state agency approach here. I like it. That's prevention. Those three recommendations coming from there. So are we good with those? Moving to treatment. So treatment had 8 recommendations. A lot of them I identified, or the majority of them being workforce, right? Like we have, I mean, Laura even brought up how beneficial it was to have the licensing fee waived for this year, right? Reinforced by Bob and your staff there. So kind of plays into and contributes to recommendations coming out of treatment as well. So first one, create equitable reimbursement levels and pay equity between traditional substance use and mental health providers. Right. I mean, I think that's a big piece. Even there's a bunch of things in the work here, even related to what licensing of behavioral health providers are, that include both substance and mental health providers. I mean, there's a lot of pieces in here, but I think that is part of our workforce development plan, as well as kind of our next round of how do we move to the next level of workforce development. We also are, how do we say this? We transitioned from the leadership of the workforce development team, right? It was Wendy Zimmerman. I think she came and presented on the workforce plan with Bhpac. It's probably been coming up to a year ago now, to Kristen Ingstrup, who's been with that team for the entirety of that team's creation. So in good hands with our workforce team, but also an opportunity to make sure that we are staying plugged in and having Kristen and her team active participants within Bhpac as well. That's more of a should have been a question rather than a statement coming from me, as you all decide which you all need from us. But yes, 100% making sure that there is pay equity between the more traditional substance use, but the goal is really the uniform approach to behavioral health services that isn't so bifurcated between substance use and mental health.
And that includes the rates, Ryan. So it's not, the rates reflect how people, you know, I hate having to drive this home again and again and again, but I'm going to do it again and again and again until someone duct tapes my mouth shut. We've got to have pay equity with the raise and HICPUF. It's got to happen.
Let's do that again and again.
Okay, I thought you were going to say, let's do that. Dave tucked my mouth. No, you mean again
No,
and again.
no, not at all. They would have to do mine as well. No, absolutely.
And I want to be completely transparent. this has nothing to do with the mental health centers, my statement, and how they pay their staff. This is just simply trying to represent one part of the system that has
Correct.
not been represented very well since I've grown up in the system. And I'll be 56, and we keep on having this conversation. So at some point, we've got to stop kicking the can down the road and get to equitable pay for recovery and substance use employees, period. Go. I'll be quiet now. Till next time.
Yep, so then kind of in the interest of time, we'll just kind of move on to the next one. So meet with Medicaid to suspend the requirements for direct licensure in treatment and training of new workforce students and ask for peers to run groups during workforce shortages done with COVID. Yeah, I mean, I think there's some federal waiver pieces, state waiver pieces kind of included in a lot of this stuff. So this is kind of my comment early was not necessarily block grant specific, right? But kind of very beneficial to what service delivery looks like, but also want to make sure that we are addressing, ensuring that, there is proper supervision, proper training, like making sure that we are being cognizant of, making sure that there is a alignment with the more medical or physical health side of things within how workforce plays into behavioral health as well, right? So we don't want to go down a path of like devaluing the need for licensure as well. So it's just a balance that we have to work through as we manage through essentially a behavioral health workforce crisis. So, but yep, fully on board. We meet with Medicaid, healthcare policy and financing every single day, kind of working through a whole bunch of different stuff, including making sure that there is some cohesion and alignment between their next round of the RAY re-procurement, for Peer Collaborative 3.0, as well as our BASO, Behavioral Health Administrative Service Organization rollout. So there's a lot of pieces that play into this. And yeah, I mean, this is why it's important to have written recommendations as well. So it's an easier way for us to present that this is what the people of Colorado also want us to do collaboratively. So thoughts, comments, questions about that? Move on to the next one. 3, you skipped one, Donda. This is allow workforce to be extended by allowing peers, certified addiction technicians and unlicensed personnel to provide service under the oversight of licensed professionals. Maybe I'm wrong with this, but I see this as kind of that next step or the next generation of what that recovery support service organization approval was, right? It went from, you can apply to essentially from being a recovery community organization to be a recovery support service organization that statutorily requires that there's connection to a licensed professional, which then allows for reimbursement of peer services within that RSSO. To me, what this recommendation says is kind of expand to the next level of that to allow more of a supervision approach rather than just through an RSSO approval model. How far off am I in my interpretation of what this recommendation is?
Well, you're not quite there. So Laura and friends, speak up. I think what we were talking about originally, Dr. Medlock, and we talked about this with you and others, that we really need workforce extenders and allowing the workforce extenders, and this is language that came from the BHA. So certainly the RSOs and then the RS service organizations, the answer to that piece is you got that right. But for the traditional substance use mental health center, allowing our peers that are within our license to be able to do more within groups and intakes is what we were talking about. So there's two differences. So that the other side, yes, you got that right. But for us, they're currently not allowed to be involved in groups or intakes. Now, we don't always want to put all peers into that position, but those that would like to be put into that position and go through that training and be allowed to be reimbursed, what we're saying, what would help close the gap in workforce and what would help revolutionize and continue to professionalize the peers would be allowing us to use some of those peers that want to do that. Some of the peers I have are actually nurses that have lost their licenses and can do a lot, but no longer carry a license. But I mean, so can you imagine? I also know a doctor that we all know that no longer carries a medical license that should be able to do much more than they can. So, okay, I'm done.
I think you said the key word there, Bob, was reimburse. If organizations are not reimbursed for the services, they have no incentive to even work on this as an issue. And so that would be one piece of it. I kind of liken this suggestion to, for those of you who are familiar, some sort of setup similar to Incident 2 billing under Medicare, which is, that means a licensed professional person has oversight over the overall care, and they have people working under them that are under a signed treatment plan that says the peer or the CAD or whomever is going to do X, Y, or Z, and then allow it to be billable and reimbursable.
So Lorraine, I know you have your hand up, but the connection I was trying to make to RSSO was the allowed for a funding stream within recovery support service organizations to have the peer services paid for within that model, because there wasn't that pathway. So the connection that I thought I was trying to make, which clearly I didn't do that well, right, was that type of model within the extension for licensed professionals, just like you said, Laura, to have folks working underneath them as a way for the reimbursement for services they provide. And so then that would be the oversight to get to that spot that then payers would pay for that. So I think there's the complexity and levels of what approval potentially looks like within this model to ensure that there is a means for proper approval or credentialing or whatever you want to call it to ensure that payers have the background and support that they feel like they need in order to pay for the services. So that's more the connection I was trying to make, not necessarily that, oh, this is RSSO. It isn't the RSSO model, but I think that's potentially a path to get to the payment of services underneath this. So
yeah, it's also very similar to what was just done this past February with the allowance for unlicensed folks for more reimbursable billable services, but payment by the raise, as long as there was written, supervision policy, clinical supervision in place, and all these things, and attestation with the raise for the unlicensed folks for billables. And so I think it would be similar to that. It's just adding in another lower level of certification or licensure to that would have peers and CATs there as well.
Ryan, I'm curious about the effect of this on labor unions, and if AFSCME or there's other labor unions, hospital related unions that might not allow workforce to be extended, allow the work, if there are unions, you would have to put that in the contract. So I just wanted to bring that up. I think it's good to try to do this, but I wouldn't want to interfere with someone's contract.
Yep, good call out. There's complexity all over the place with workforce extension. I will add the behavioral health aid model as well, with the credentialing of that kind of plays into this, as well as the community health worker bill that passed this session to try to get at how do we extend the workforce in a way that is meaningful and reimbursable as well. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of right at the heart of some of the ideas that were floating out in a bunch of other spots as well, including the General Assembly. go to the next one. Megan, you want to take this one for?
Yep, I'll take this one. So the next one is to continue the ARPA benefits, which would include subsidies to cover 50% of staffing costs for SUD workers, creating of cost of living stipends for workforce in housing cost burdened communities, and payment for licensure of staff. So this one is a bit tricky due to the federal funding requirements and the timelines for when funding must be spent. So with those ARPA funds, we are limited to when those funds can be spent. And unfortunately, they're not ongoing funds that can be continued.
I think what we were referring to, Megan, is some of the programs that were created under ARPA and the mechanics of the money and how beneficial it was to the community, those grant programs, and how they really surged appropriate amount of cash into service organizations. That what we were saying is, just because ARPA is going away doesn't mean that the BHA and the state can't figure out how to keep that structure going. So something good came out of the pandemic with some of these grants that you put out, and they've really helped the community. Our concern is when ARPA goes away in 24 months, is there going to be a crash in the system because we all have this surge of 40, 50, $60 million. So are we thinking preventatively, and can some of these really amazing programs maybe be scaled down, Megan? But you guys have done some great work, and we've all done some great work as a community, figuring out how to use money and how to make sure we have better access to care, which we did. So my concern is, how do we keep these grant programs going, probably at a smaller scale? I think that's what our group was representing.
Yep, thanks, Bob. And I think that even goes into the next recommendation, right? And I think that one's maybe, if you go one more slide forward, Donda, with direct funding rather than through grant funding. So like direct lines of securing funding for very beneficial or what have been very beneficial, like one time or really short-term grant funding. So yes, I think it is one of those ones where it's like, yeah, with our workforce development plan, is that 100% has to include what a sustainable funding mechanisms and streams look like. So I think that kind of goes back with kind of how you explained the previous slide with the ARPA dollars, as I clearly didn't get that as the response there, but it makes complete sense within this one as well. So, but yeah, ultimately, I think that is the approach that we need to take with our larger workforce development plan. But Laura, it sounds like you got something.
Yeah, I was just going to say that, I mean, the license fee waiver, I think that was just a lovely little gift that everyone just got. And I think the more we can do things like that, the more it directly benefits everybody instead of just certain people who can write fancy grants. Which is, so when people can write fancy grants, they get those grants over and over again, but that doesn't create equitable sharing and distribution of the wealth, to be honest. And so we need to find a different way than what we have been doing. I thought the license fee waiver was genius, even though I was also suggested it. I'm complimenting myself there, I guess.
Yep, we can. This is Bhpac, Laura Dyka specifically, having everyone's licensing fee waived, right? Push that as the.
It was great. I agree with Laura. My staff were so happy. So spread that around the BHA and Dora. I mean, that was just make sure people were thanked and that this came out of this council, that it was a big deal to staff. There's not really a mechanics for us to say thank you, but we can through this council.
It's not just about the money. They didn't have to do anything. It was so easy. All they do is they go to renew their license and they're like, oh, I don't have to pay the fee this year.
Well, we just had to pay the the court fees.
Right.
Yeah. But it was so easy online too. The state made it so easy. It was punch a couple of buttons and put your credit card in and pay the court fee and goodbye.
Right.
It was great. You guys did a great job with that.
And I think that really is the power of recommendations coming out of a whole bunch of different spots, right? Like there is meaning and power behind what groups like this do, right? So I think that's just a
well,
fantastic
Ryan,
shift.
somebody listened and it feels really good. You know, that's the point of this. And I think that reinforces why people will sign up for councils, is they can see action and movement. So, you know, that's why we sit here and take all our time, you know, so this really helps like motivate people to want to sign up and continue to do this work. So whoever in your food chain listened and made this happen, thank you. It was great. Now let's get to pay equity. There's my quick plug again. Go on, Ryan.
Yep. So then 6 is very similar, right? Increased funding for expansion of loan repayment programs, right? Loan repayment programs were part of our workforce development that we're required to put in, and there was ARPA dollars specifically associated with that. I kind of see this as our conversation with the last 2 recommendations kind of getting plugged into there for secure a ongoing funding stream, because those are positive things that increase the ability for folks to get into behavioral health, right? Like, yes, right? Like we have to do things that support this. So I don't know if we need to continue on within this discussion here, but and
Ryan,
then
this is
oh,
Margie, just real quickly. It seems really important is there whoever listened to take that up that chain as well, because I know everybody likes to be appreciated for listening or doing the right thing. And I think it's equally important for the council to, I don't know whether there's a formal way or just for people to be aware that how important it was for them to listen and the difference that makes.
Look, folks, we can write a letter and sign it so that way the state can pass it around to the powers that be. That's completely within our charter, is to write a thank you letter or a letter, and then our staff liaison can take that and give it to whoever it be. I'm willing to write that letter and get it to you guys for editing if you want. So that way we can make it more official, this thank you. But it's tough times, so I think state employees also need a pat on the back as well.
yep. Megan or I can pass that on to the Director of Professions and Occupations over at DORA as well, and make sure that it gets sent to all of the professional boards. So
do I have a show of hands electronically to write this and get it before you for editing and preview? Quick show of hands, soft vote. My goal is just to make the thank you and the enthusiasm official. Okay, I've got a bunch, so I'll get something drafted and get it out to Donda and the rest of you, and you can edit it, and then I'll get it to Megan and Ryan. Thanks, everybody.
Yep, so down to the last 2 here. So about telehealth, continue to support the efforts. Yeah, sorry, just gotta, yeah, and then we'll alleviate some of the strain related to access to care. Yes, we need to continue on with what telehealth has shown us, that good services can still be provided by telehealth, right? Like we expanded telehealth as that was the mode, or a big primary mode of receiving services. Want to make sure that that continues. This I think goes nicely with recommendation number 8, like making sure that telehealth payable services aren't eliminated kind of across the board, not necessarily just HCPF, right, but making sure that there is consistency in what telehealth reimbursement rates and service delivery are being able to maintain. But I do want to make sure that we are addressing that telehealth isn't the answer for every type of services in every situation, right? I want to be frank and very clear that, right, there is still always a need for direct in-person service delivery, right? So we just need to make sure that we're balancing through that stuff, which I think this group is good at recognizing and understanding as well. So absolutely working closely with healthcare policy and financing related to what services could be continued on a telehealth basis, also with new pieces of legislation, even the expansion of the crisis system, right? There's telehealth specific components related to how it fits in with mobile response. So we just need to make sure that there are clear and concise funding streams to support those models as well. Laura.
Yeah, I have a specific comment on this one. That when I believe HCBUF via the coding manual somewhere in the last couple of years, basically kind of added flexibility to the raise to decide what would be paid for allowable for tele services versus HCBUF making that decision. And what has happened then is created inequities from one rate to another, some paying and some not paying for certain types of modalities over telehealth. For example, one of the largest rates in the state is not currently paying for telephone or video services for behavioral health outreach, which is outrageous in my personal opinion. And so some of those inequities need to be looked at, and I think the rates need to be held accountable to making sure that they are paying fairly for the services being rendered to their members, and that there's equity amongst RAE payments. So one Medicaid member doesn't get a service because that RAE is not paying for it, when another member does get the service. When everyone is talking about access for mental health in the state, it would seem really counterintuitive to not to look at this. I'm not quite sure how. I think that's maybe more of a BHA connection and oversight more than a block grant recommendation, unless it is a problem with money for the raise to pay for the tele services. Hopefully all that made sense.
Yep, no, I followed you directly, and I think there's a lot of examples about kind of inconsistencies across race. So that comes up routinely when we talk with HCBUF. So I think this plays nicely into that. And it's another plug for having written recommendations is a fantastic way to really push home hey, the community is concerned about this. Let's do something about it together, sister agency. So that's the 14. Kind of the goal for us is to have kind of a written response that then gets included, like I said, specifically in a written response from the BHA to each one of these recommendations that then will get plugged into the block grant application when it gets sent over to our federal partners, the Substance Abuse and Mental Health Services Administration. And I want to reiterate, thank you so much for kind of the time and effort that got put into these recommendations. It's I can't reiterate enough like how beneficial it has to have these written down and in pocket, that yes, like there are things that are happening from the community that we can really drive home some pieces, even when other state agencies are looking for things to do and how to support and benefit behavioral health. Like we have stuff that we can go to them and say, hey, this is what communities already asked for. Let's partner and work together. So yes, I think there's been a very positive response with the licensing fee waiver. And I think that's a prime example of how far and the reach that you all have here as well. So thank you.
All right, is there any further recommendations or discussion we want to have with Ryan and the BHA as to the presentation and conversations we've just had? So right now the floor is open. Did we get it right? Are we missing something? Do we need to add something? Don't be shy, because you all are not shy. I've had to lead you for a year now.
I will make one more plug. Really look at that 177-page application, provide feedback within that, as well as the one step within that is that the chair and co-chairs, or chair and vice chair and co-chairs, however the breakdown of leadership is here. We'll need a letter from the co-chairs about the this process and the application that also goes into the application we send it over to SAMHSA, ultimately acknowledging that there is a BPAC in Colorado that is meeting consistently and provides good work. That's essentially just the confirmation letter that gets sent with the application as well. So I or Megan will be reaching out to Bob, you and Marcella to kind of help through that process to make sure that our application goes and gets sent without a hitch, right? Like ideally, we don't want to leave millions upon millions of dollars on the table. So want to make sure this application gets sent over.
I wanted to add, oh,
Go ahead.
sorry.
Go ahead.
I wanted to add, I think this is the second time I've been through the recommendation process. And I just wanted to give props to the group because I thought all of the recommendations were very well worded. I think a lot of thought, time, and care went into them. So just really well done, everyone, on just putting so much time and effort into this, and heart too.
Agreed.
Thank you.
All right, are there legislative, other behavioral health updates? How is the BHA doing? What's been going on at the BHA and legislature? Can you give us a general update on the transitions, how staff are doing, how we're doing in general, and how the legislature is doing? So BHA colleagues, go ahead and give us an update the best you can.
I will start with backwards from here with we are waist deep in interim committees, right? There's 3 interim committees that we are following and participating in very closely. That's the treatment of persons with behavioral health disorders in the criminal and juvenile justice system, and the corresponding task force and the subcommittees of that task force that are coming up with recommendations for what bills that legislative oversight committee could potentially have drafted. They can draft up to 10 bills, and that's going to be a vote in their September meeting to identify which bills will go to legislative legal services for drafting. They have a bunch of different subcommittees of the task force about competency, about kids, about the crisis system, about medical marijuana or recreational marijuana, medical and recreational marijuana, really kind of coming up with ideas that to create bills. So that's one of them that happens routinely. Another one, the opioid and other substance use disorder study interim committee, that they are kind of going through the very similar process and timing with where do we go with what they want to pursue. That opioid interim study committee is meeting for the first time since 2019. We at the BHA are presenting on the jail-based behavioral health services program on their meeting on Monday, the 7th. So if you're interested in that, it's over at the Capitol. And then the other one I talked about briefly was the child welfare system study committee, and their next meeting is on August 22nd, which there'll be a conversation between healthcare policy and financing and the Department of Human Services, as well as the BHA, about the kids' behavioral health system and assets and gaps within that system and continuum. So those are 3 big ones. Feels like it's been a lot of Ryan talking here. So do we have BHA staff that want to give any sort of update on how we are feeling and what we're doing within the BHA?
I'll go ahead and give an HR update to where we are staffing as quickly as possible. We are hoping to have an additional 60 staff by the end of the fiscal or the end of the year. Right now we have, I believe, 12 positions that we are in the midst of hiring, whether it be just posting or if they are in the interview process and hiring process. But we are trying to get up to staff as quickly as possible while getting that high quality employees in here. Anybody else?
Thanks for that, Donda. I think that as Donda just mentioned, as we're building out capacity of our staffing, just definitely bringing some relief to folks who have been wearing lots of hats. And so as we build more people on, we have more capacity to be able to do the work and dive in deeper to the things that we need to do. So that's been exciting. And then in addition to that, our leadership team has been working on results-driven management, which is a new system to really help us be most efficient in all of the things that we're doing. And so an exciting part of that is that there's a lot of work across divisions. So divisions working together and getting to be bringing different folks at the table for some of these projects. And so I know that the feedback that I've been receiving is staff feel like excited to be part of some of these different initiatives and to have their voices heard. And so I think slowly we are getting to a better and better place, and really, there's a lot of excitement about what the BHA is, what we are becoming, what we can accomplish for Colorado. I think that's kind of where we're at, if that answers your question.
In the search for the new commissioner, the boundaries of doing that, can you do the update that we got in BHAC from interim Commissioner Barnes that the search has started? Do you feel comfortable providing an update on that?
Yeah, Bob, we don't really have additional information other than the search is underway. There is a recruiting, we have a contract for recruiting that is in place. And the last I heard was that they were hoping to announce the new commissioner by the end of September. I don't know, Ryan, I don't know if you've heard anything, if that's been kind of that outlook has been changed or modified, but that's the last that I had heard.
Yep, I haven't heard any new timing beyond that as well. So this is happening through the governor's office, right? The BHA commissioner is appointed by the governor, right? So that's part of the reason why we don't have that specific information here.
No, you guys did great. I just wanted to let everyone know that the process is happening, and there is a recruiting firm, and they are looking for a new BHA commissioner. So I just wanted to make sure everybody knew that process was taking place, and we had an update in BHAC, and I just wanted to make sure BPAC also was included in that update. So some people with lived experience from the BHAC task force are going to have the opportunity to be a part of the selection committee. So that way Colorado will definitely be represented in that process, from what I understand. So don't hold me to that. But that process is moving forth. Are there any other questions from council to our BHA colleagues, or any other discussion we need to have today?
Oh, I just have a comment, Bob. I think it's really interesting, the difference between your coaching tip earlier about hiring on the spot, all the way to contracting for recruiting services. The major gap that exists on the recruitment, hiring, and retention of staff at state levels, and then those of us that are providing services. The idea that we simply have to grab them as they come, but the state doesn't have to do that. What an interesting, difference between those systems of recruiting and hiring. I thought that was kind of humorous, but I understand the system. Been there, was the senior recruiter for many years, so I get it. But I just thought it was really interesting.
I think we would love to hire on the spot, Marcella, but unfortunately, state government has way too many hoops for us to jump through to do that. Because
that's why I said, yep. That's why I said.
Don't forget they have a really good sign-on bonus.
Which we don't have. Yeah, right.
Colleagues, is there anything else? I did get us to 11:30, so you're going to get 30 minutes back in your world if you don't have anything else to bring up or talk about.
This is Margie, and I just want to add real quickly, I think what's important in people making that hiring decision is because of all the lack of clarity on what happened previously, I think the message needs to be that the new process has to be very inclusive, and people need to now regain confidence in this process. And certainly nobody's fault, but it's just the average person when they read these newspaper articles and they see these things, it can be disheartening, but especially for those needing these services. We really want to ensure that they feel confident in the next phase.
Margie and everybody on this council, if you would like to weigh in and you would like to make sure that it's inclusive and it's a process and you want to have voice, go to the BHA website. There is a Google form there for questions and suggestions. Please utilize that and talk about what you would like to see in a new commissioner, but exercise your right to communicate, because we're about community for community. And your way of communicating is going to the website right now. Certainly we have staff a part of this and they've heard it. They can take it back to their team meetings. But you can officially, Margie, go to the state website, fill out the Google form and submit it. And then it'll go up the food chain and it can be brought to Interim Commissioner Barnes' attention and she can take that to the governor's office. But everybody on this call today does have a way they can wish and can inform the decision-making process by exercising the Google Sheet. So please go to the website. And when you're on the website, look at all the meetings and everything that's going on there. It's a very busy website. So exercise your right, folks, and get involved. Anything else? Well, you all look fantastic, tan and happy. Continue to enjoy what's left of summer. I'm not quite sure where it went, but I appreciate everybody's hard work with their recommendations. I think this was one of the better sessions I've been a part of in years. Ryan, we appreciate all the work you do for us. Megan, thank you so much for helping us as well. And of course, our rock star, Donda, that keeps us together and always smiling and always getting everything out on time for all of us. So the council owes you guys a thank you letter. We'll work on that. And I will work with Marcella on, I understand what the submission letter is. Ryan, I can get started on that and you can just let me know if I got it right, but I'll get you the submission letter. And then if I got it right, by all means, I have to share that with everyone else, what we wrote. So I'll get that around. So Marcella, we got two things to accomplish, but Megan and Ryan, we'll get that to you, okay? All right, at this time, the recording, just a second. I need a motion to close.
Before we do that, we did not approve the minutes from last month. Can we do that real quick so that we don't have to do it next month?
Everybody, please take a look at the email that Donda sent last Friday. Inside that email is your minutes and your agenda. Please open the minutes, review the minutes, let us know if you have any additions, edits, or changes. I'm going to go ahead and give everyone 1 minute. Thank you, Donda.
I read them early this morning before the meeting, and I move for approval.
Do I have a second?
I second that.
Discussion? I'm hearing no discussions. Minutes are adopted and placed into the folder. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I so move. This is Marcella.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. This is Shannon.
Thank you all. Have a wonderful day. Ciao.
Ciao.
Ciao.